Hello students, today we are going to start with lesson 1 of history, that is what, where, how and when. So let us know first of all what is history. Students, whatever has happened in the past, it becomes history in the future. Like whatever is happening today, it will become history tomorrow. Even your family has a history. If you go through the old albums of your parents and grandparents, you will come to know about the history of your family from those photographs. Now, can you tell me that the life of the which your parents have lived was same as the life your grandparents have lived? Is your life same as your parents have lived? No, they are totally different. In the same way, the past is not generally the same for the whole population which is living in a society. Everyone has their own lifestyle. For example, the life of farmer or a herder is not same as a life of kings and queens. They have the different style of living. In the same way, the life of merchants was different from that of craftsperson and so on. In the same way, the past of one place or country is also different from other places or countries. Means all the places and all the countries have their own past. They don't have the same past. So we can know from history about the life of different social and professional groups, like the life of cattle rearing tribes, farmers, merchants and traders, priests, craftsmen, musicians, doctors and astronomers. From history we get information how our early man has developed from food gatherer to into a civilized society. We can know that how they have contributed, what our ancestors have contributed to make our society a civilized society, what inventions they have done. Students, whatever comforts you are enjoying now, they are because of the efforts which were done by our ancestors. So we need to know the past to able to understand our present. Past and present are interconnected to each other, so it is very important to know about our past. Now the next question in front of us is that from where do the historians they collect this whole information what has happened in the past? Who are historians? Historians are the scholars who find out, who do the researches that what has happened in the past. So, how do they come to know that what has happened in the past? So, they go through certain materials of past. Those materials are called sources, and these sources are of two types: archaeological sources and literary sources. Now, first of all, what are archaeological sources? The materials which were left by our past societies and they were buried under the earth's surface. They are called archaeological sources. Now, these sources are excavated by the historians. Excavated means digging the earth and taking out the remains. So, they take out the remains from the earth and they study that remains, those material objects, whatever they find, they do a thorough study on that and then they come to some conclusion. Now these archaeological sources are also of three types. First of all, material remains. These material remains include the objects. Which type of objects? Like pieces of pottery, clothes, utensils, tools, toys, whatever they find, the material objects, during their excavations. These materials, they give a very important information that what type of building activities were there in the past, what was a chronological sequence of the material culture. Chronological sequence means that what happened first and what happened after that, after that, means how this development took place, which materials were uh, invented first and which were invented after that. And same thing for culture, how our culture has kept on changing. So that is the chronological sequence. So these objects, these material remains, they also give the detail of our social, economic, and political importance. The next archaeological source are coins. Coins are also very important because they give a very important information. They tell us the name and the period of a particular ruler, because the rulers were minting their names on the coins, and even sometimes they were minting the year, from which year to which year they were the rulers. So from that we can come to know that this particular ruler has ruled from this year to this year. And they were also minting the images of gods, religious symbols, and legends. So from that we can come to know that what type of uh, gods they were worshipping, what were their religious symbols. We get information from that coins. Then comes the inscriptions. What are inscriptions? Inscriptions are the words which were engraved in stone or metal by some rulers, rich merchants, or any other members of the society in the past. Engraved means khod ke likhna. So they were engraving the words in stone or metal. Inscriptions have been found. Inscription is a part of that inscription. Inscriptions were found on stones and copper plates and on other materials like rocks, pillars, slabs, walls of temples, caves, etc. Now, the oldest inscription which is deciphered so far, deciphered means which was, now these inscriptions are not easy to be read out, because they were written in different languages. Decipher means to, which are clear, which can be uh, read out. So only the oldest inscription which is deciphered so far was issued by Ashoka about 2300 years ago. Now, Ashokan edicts means whatever messages Ashoka wanted to give to his subjects or his people, he was engraving on the rocks and stone pillars. So, Ashokan edicts are mostly engraved on rocks and stone pillars. Now, there are examples of these inscriptions, like iron pillar installed near Qutub Minar in Delhi. It contains a Gupta inscription. Prayag Prashasti or Allahabad pillar inscription. It describes the military achievements of Samudragupta. The rock inscription in Sanskrit, composed to record the achievements of Shaka ruler Rudraman. They are all examples of inscriptions. Now, these all were archaeological sources. Can we recall which were these archaeological resources? First, material remains. Second, coins. And third, inscriptions. Now, the next type of sources were literary sources. Literary sources means whatever was handwritten, means handwritten texts or manuscripts, that were all literary sources. So there are so many handwritten texts or manuscripts. Manuscripts means handwritten text. So which were written by our ancestors have been discovered and studied by our modern historians. They have discovered those manuscripts and they have studied those manuscripts. Now, where they were writing these manuscripts, they were writing them on palm leaves or on the bark of birch tree. And the languages which they were using were Sanskrit, or some were written in Prakrit. Prakrit was a local language of the ordinary people, and these were also written in Tamil. Now manuscripts are also divided into different categories. Which are those categories? First are religious texts. Religious texts, they tell us about everything related to religion, that what were the religious beliefs of the people, how they were practicing their religion. For example, the Vedas and the Puranas, etc., they were written by the sages and the learned men in Sanskrit. Buddhist and the Jaina texts, they were written in Pali and Prakrit. Pali was also a local language of the common people. They were written respectively to explain the doctrines of the religion. The epics. Next is the epics. Epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana, they are written in Sanskrit language and are good source of to study the social values of ancient times. Later, they were written in several other languages also, so that the other regions can also read and understand them. The next are secular texts. They were writings which were non religious in nature. Whatever was non religious, that comes under secular text. Now, in these texts, the life of kings, political events, they were described. Even they gave information on medicine and science. So, in this regard, many examples are given. Like Kalhana has written Raj Tarangani, Kautilya has written Arthashastra, Kalidas wrote many dramas and plays, and treatises were written by great mathematicians Aryabhatta and Charak, the expert on Ayurveda. Next literary source is Sangam literature. Sangam literature grew in the south, and they also gave us very important source material. They used Tamil language, and in this Sangam literature there is a collection of 30,000 lines of poetry which was written in the praise of various heroes. Next is accounts of foreign travelers. Children, many people from the foreign, they came to visit India, and whatever they saw in India, they were writing that, and that became the accounts of foreign travelers. Now, several accounts written by Buddhists and other travelers who visited India from time to time they give us a valuable information. For example, Herodotus. Herodotus is also called the father of history. He came with Alexander the Great. When Alexander came to invade India, what do you mean by invade? Invade means to attack India. Herodotus also accompanied Alexander, and he came near about 2400 years ago. We learn Alexander's invasions of India from the accounts written by Herodotus. Herodotus wrote about the Alexander's invasion. Then, in the same way, Huang Sang, he was a Chinese Buddhist pilgrim. He also visited India when Harshvardhana was ruling. He wrote about Harshvardhana in his accounts, that how he was religiously tolerant. Religiously tolerant means he was treating all the religions equally, and how what efforts he has done to spread Mahayana form of Buddhism. So these were literary sources. So let us recall which were literary sources: religious texts, epics, secular texts, Sangam literature, and accounts of foreign travelers. Now, children, the study of history is also further classified into two categories, that is, historical time and prehistorical time. Now, which time comes under? First of all, I'll tell you about prehistorical time. Now, which time comes under prehistorical time? The time when man has not learnt the art of writing, means of that time we don't have any written record of any events, dates, or economic transactions. We don't have any written record of prehistoric time because that time the man has not learned the art of writing. So that is called the prehistoric time. But as the man learned the art of writing and he started keeping the record of events, dates, and economic transactions, that time comes under the historical time. Now, historical time is also studied in three categories. First of all, ancient period, which now we are studying. We are going to study about the ancient period in 6th standard. Then what the life of early man, how he developed himself into a civilized man, how he started living a settled life. So all this we will study in this ancient period. Then next year you will study about the medieval period. The medieval period in which Turks, Mughals, they came to India and they contributed their own culture, languages to our country. Then next year you will study about modern period when British came to India, how they established their rule in India, and how our Indians they struggled to get freedom from the British. So that period comes under modern period. So this you will study one by one in all the classes. Now there is very too much importance of dates also. Dates are very important in the study of history because they tell us about the past of particular object, ruler, or society. And generally when we study in this ancient history, the dates are mentioned like BC and AD. Now what is the full form of BC? BC means before Christ and AD means Anno Domini. Now BC, the events which happened before the birth of Christ, Jesus Christ, that is said to be BC, and the events which took place after the birth of Jesus Christ, they are termed as AD or Anno Domini. There are some other abbreviations also which are used with the dates, that is BCE and CE. BCE means before Common Era and CE means Common Era. Now our next topic is geographical framework. Now students, do you know that the geographical factors and historical factors, they are interdependent on each other? How? Now our country was bounded by, you can say, natural boundaries like Himalayas. They becomes the shield from north. They protect us from extreme cold winds which are entering into India. But these greater Himalayas, they protect us from those extremely cold Siberian winds. In the same way, peninsular India, peninsula means the area surrounded by water on three sides. So our country is peninsular India. In the south you can see it is surrounded by water from three sides. They protect us from foreign invasions. The oceans which are there, which are surrounding our country, they protect us from the foreign invasions. Now the next factor, geographical factor, is our rivers. Now rivers, they come under geography. Okay, so geographical factor is rivers. But our early settlements, when human beings started living a settled life, he settled near the rivers. Can you tell me the reason why he preferred to live near the rivers only? There is a reason behind that. Because the river valleys, they have a good quality of soil, fertile soil. They provide water. So the good soil, fertile soil, they are good for crop production. They give them food and water is also available there. So that is why they prefer to live near the rivers. There, because of this geographical condition of these regions only, there was a growth of human settlements. In the same way, hills also provide people with food and shelter for their survival. Now hills are the geographical feature, and people formed their settlement, established their settlements in the hills. That is the historical feature. Narmada Valley and earliest human settlements, they emerged on the Indian soil. Their people were skilled gatherers of food. Now, in this Narmada Valley, this region was full of natural vegetation. They were including forest also, and with this forest were home for variety of small and big wild animals. And human being in early human was a hunter also, and food gatherer also. So they were hunting the animals to fulfill their food requirements, and they were gathering the food from the forests. In the same way, Suleiman and Kirthar hills, which are located in the northwest, they were the region where the crops such as wheat and barley were grown about 8,000 years ago. Now, at this time, when they started growing the crops, now they have learned to grow crops. Otherwise, they were nomads in nature. They were moving from one place to another in search of food and water. But now they have learned to grow crops, and they have started living a settled life. So this also started rearing animals. They reared animals like sheep, goat, cattle, and they lived in villages. Now they were not moving from one place to another place. Now they were doing agriculture. They were rearing animals. So agriculture also developed in Garo Hills to the northeast, and in the Vindhyas in the central area in India. In Vindhya region, first the rice was grown. Along the river Indus and its tributaries, cities developed. I have already told you that what was the reason behind this, that they were uh, settling near the rivers. First, civilization was found in the Indus, near the Indus River only, which is called Indus River Civilization. Here, the cities developed around 2700 BC. The first ever empire which emerged in territory called Magad was located in the Ganga Valley. So, this is how the geographical features are connected to the historical features. So, by this, we end up with the chapter. So, I hope all of you have understood whatever is taught today. So, now what you have to do is you will go through the whole chapter again. If you don't have books, I am sending you the pics of all the pages. You can zoom and read all the pages. After that, you will try to find out all the bookwork answers of all the exercises along with the questions. You will be sent with the solved exercises and questions also. Then after that, you will write all those question answers. No need to write bookwork in the notebook. You will not write bookwork in the register. You will do the bookwork in book only. You will write only question answers in register. If registers are not available, you can use anything, whatever is available to you, to write your question answers. Okay, students. Now I hope you have understood everything. So all the best. Goodbye.